Thank you so much for joining me again today. My name is Catherine Guidry, and I am a mother of two little girls who are currently age 3 and 1. And so life is very busy as a wedding photographer. I'm so thrilled to be speaking about this because I think it's something that's very near and dear to a lot of our hearts. Maybe you're a mother who already has children, or maybe you're thinking about, like, what does the future hold? I'm going to be sharing the behind the scenes of that with you today. If you're interested, also, I want to let you know that we have a ton of free resources available for wedding photographers. I usually try to put that in the description. So we have free classes about booking your calendar out. We have pricing guides, posing classes. Check it out, guys. I am so excited to provide information that can help you on your photography journey. And like today, that can help you also in life. I am not perfect. This has been the biggest challenge of my life, moving into this stage of being a mom who is also working. And up until the point that I had my first child, I was running the business. And of course, I was married to my husband, Brad, who is an architect that also does second shoot for the business. But up until that point, we just had us. It was just the two of us. We were, traveling, we were shooting, and life wasn't as busy as it is now. I hate to say it, but I just didn't realize how much more free time we had at the time. If you're a parent, you probably understand what I mean. Um, and it's a good thing. Like, I wouldn't go back and change any of it. We love our daughters. They bring so much love to our lives. And honestly, it's brought so much purpose to mine. And it's also made me be a lot more intentional about work, what I'm committing to, what I'm not committing to, and the trajectory of the future. It's making me really question, like, what does that look like? And how am I going to find that balance? And so today in this episode, I want to touch on some of the things that I have found helpful that can hopefully, provide some guidance for you. And also just know that before we even start, I completely understand that everyone is different. I want to give that disclaimer because what works for me may not work for you, or maybe some of the things that work for me might work for you. So let's dig into one of the most important things that is going to override this entire conversation, which is going to be trying to balance it all. When we first had our oldest, we had in-home care, and it worked great. Thankfully, it was actually our very best friend who stepped in and helped us from she was 3 months until she was about 8 months. And I loved it. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't get a lot of work done in that time frame, which was fine. Kept up with my weddings, kept up with my editing, but I spent a lot of time with them. And so really it was almost like a co-parent in addition to Brad. There was three parents at the time, and it was really a lot of fun. But when my daughter did in fact start school at 8 months, the way it works in New Orleans, there are not really daycares. I mean, yes, there are daycares, but there's also the opportunity to enroll your child in a school. And it's not like they're learning their ABCs at age 3, but essentially they can, like, be in a play-based environment that they can stay in if they like until they're in the 12th grade, which we loved because we feel like there's a really strong relationship between the older kids, the big girls, like my daughter called them, and the little girls, and what impact that plays. That's a whole nother conversation that eventually I should probably talk about. But needless to say, we loved the school environment. And when that happened, it was the first time I realized that balance for me meant having strong boundaries between when I'm working and when I'm not. Brad and I are very strategic and specific about what our lives look like with our children. And we both feel very passionately about carving time for work that does not have our children around for. We just felt like we wanted to be able to focus when we're working, and having our children at home, even with care, is difficult because they see us, they want us. And honestly, like, I'm already a bit of a procrastinator. And when they're home, I find it really challenging to work. And so when they're away and they're at school and focused, it allows us to really focus and do our work. And then we also have a very hard stop. Typically, our hard stop in the afternoon is around 4. And so from 4 until around 7 or 7:30, 8 o'clock ish, when they're both in bed, that is family time. After that, we typically will either take the night off or work. It just depends on where we are in our season. For example, summer was really slow. So we spent a lot of time watching movies or just like relaxing in the evenings. As we move into the fall season, we'll probably work more at night. But essentially, like, I know that was a long one, but the biggest takeaway here is that you have to figure out what works for you and like how you're going to balance work and family because I just found it really difficult to do both at the same time. And I would feel frustrated with work and my kids at the same time. I never felt like I was doing both. And the truth is that your brain can actually only think about one thing at a time. And if you have two things that are pulling at you, you're going to feel frustrated and probably at both. So, the next thing that I wanted to touch on is managing unpredictable schedules. So, as a mom, you know just as well as I do that kids get sick, things happen, and it's really helpful and it relieves stress when you have strong backup plans. One of those backup plans that we started enforcing after our second was born was that on wedding days, I know this sounds crazy, but we have two sitters. The reason why is because number one, our kids are in two different places of life. Our 3-year-old has needs, wants attention. She's kind of on the move. And then our 1-year-old puts everything in her mouth and like we cannot keep track of her 90% of the time because she's just really fast and bold. And so all that to say, like, we just feel that two sitters is great to actually keep eyes on them and give us the comfort in knowing that they're really well cared for when we're gone. In addition, things happen. And with weddings, like I can't exactly call my client and say, hey, I'm so sorry, my sitters didn't show up today. I'm going to be late for your event. That is a non negotiable, especially as you move up in your business and there's greater expectations. Not to say at any point that it is okay, but like I know our cost per hour at this point is already very high and clients are digesting invoices at 15-minute increments and I can't afford to be late 15 minutes. So when our sitters, which like all things, have unexpected scenarios, I just want to be sure that we have two sitters in place for all of our events. And that has given us great comfort. Let's talk about the physical and emotional exhaustion that comes from having children. um, it is inevitable. Brad and I wake up usually around 6 a.m., between 6 and 6:30 on weekdays. Of course, on the weekends, we work really long nights. We work really long days on the weekdays too. It always makes me laugh a little bit. I don't know if you feel this way, but whenever somebody says like, oh, you're a wedding photographer, like, what do you do during the weekday? I work. I actually had one of my friends say to me recently, like, oh, but I have a real job. And it's just hilarious because you know as well as I do that there's so much that takes place during the week. Plus, of course, caring for children physically, emotionally, it is exhausting. And so, all that to say, like, when it comes to our personal care, Brad and I really try to thankfully I want to acknowledge that we do have each other and you'll hear me talk a lot about Brad and I and like I know that not everyone does necessarily have a partner in life that they're walking through parenthood with, but whether it is your partner, it is so imperative to find a support system, even if it's something that you're paying for, an au pair, a sitter. I talked about the sitters that we use. We really lean into our sitters, but Brad and I do lean into each other when it comes to that physical and emotional exhaustion that comes from parenting and life. I can say that even today, I needed a minute to just like lay down this afternoon. I haven't been feeling great. And for about 45 minutes, I went and laid down, and there was no question about it. Brad and I have that understanding. When he's really tired, I can tell. Sometimes I'll look at Brad and I'll say, Brad, go to bed. Like I can just see it in his face. And so you really want to keep yourself in check, keep your partner in check, and give each other the grace to rest. If you're not resting, you're not keeping up, and that's not going to be great for you or for the kids or for the business. And so that physical and emotional level needs to be in check in order for you to finish the marathon, right? Because it's a marathon. The next thing I want to talk about is client expectations and family priorities. When I started my business, I spent a lot of time checking emails, obviously editing, shooting sessions on weekends. I really just kind of worked around the clock, 24/7, 365. There wasn't any hard and fast rule. And Brad and I, both being entrepreneurial, we understand that things come up. And like, I can't even tell you the number of times we've been on vacations with our laptops. It's just sort of how we managed our life. But I think when we became parents, it really did open our eyes to this idea that, like, we understand as parents, but they don't understand. And I don't like when our daughter is saying things like, well, mommy, can, come play with me and I'm on my computer. And so we've had to implement some pretty specific boundaries around aspects of our business. One example of that is that I no longer photograph on weekends unless it's for a wedding. So I have oftentimes clients that'll reach out and say, oh, well, what's your Saturday availability? What's your Sunday availability? And even at some point, I was charging weekend fees of, I don't know, 175, 250, something like that. I actually am no longer even offering that option. Friday nights are typically spent photographing rehearsal dinners. Saturdays are typically spent photographing weddings. Sundays are our only family day, and I protect that at all costs. Weekend sessions are not an option. We recently had, for example, a client who was inquiring and wanted to schedule a weekend. And, her husband's a surgeon. They didn't have a lot of flexibility. And as much as it hurt to set that hard boundary and forego that booking, we ultimately couldn't come to a place of agreement in regards to the scheduling. And so it was like it was a very kind and mutual exchange, but we just realized that it wasn't going to work. I wasn't going to give up a Sunday. Uh, all of our Saturdays pretty much are filled with weddings anyway, and they couldn't make it work because it was like sort of a short window of time. And that's okay. Like, as the business owner, you have the ability to choose. And the older I get, the more I realize that I want to choose life. I want to choose memories. Obviously, I want to choose to continue to do something that I love for a living and to be professional. And there is a balance there. You're going to probably hear me talk a lot more in the coming weeks about the revelations that I'm having about life. I feel like I'm having a lot of, I don't know, soul searching conversations with Brad about what the future looks like. And I really believe that becoming a mom changed me. It changed me in so many ways. I believe for me, for the better. And it just made me appreciate time. Life truly is so short. And so, although work is incredibly important and very thankfully life giving to me, it brings me a lot of joy. I also want to continue to figure out like how I can prioritize myself and my family while still meeting those client expectations. Let's talk about childcare logistics. I kind of touched on it, but I didn't go into that super deeply. But I did mention that our children are in school. I do know other wedding photographers who have their kids in like a homeschool program, which is really neat because a lot of wedding photographers travel a lot. Our business is primarily drivable from where we are. And so our kids do go to school. They're in school 5 days a week. I love the consistency of that. I think it's good for us and it's good for them. On the weekends, though, we also do have help. Even as far as like, say we're getting ready for a wedding, like we're prepping for a wedding in the same city as where we live, we invite help into the home that morning. And so we can start to get ready and start to pack gear and not feel so stressed. A lot of what we've chosen to do is get help, hire help. The money that we make, we're using as a tool. We're saving as much as we can, but we're also doing things like outsourcing and hiring support for ourselves, because when you're not doing that and you're holding onto your finances so tight, it can often lead to burnout. And especially in a job that requires so much of your time and energy, you want to ensure that you're utilizing that tool of having money to hire a house cleaner, someone that can like help you keep your home up, or maybe, you're doing grocery delivery or grocery pickup. Those little things that might feel like added expenses, as long as they're not crazy and blowing the budget for you, will help you keep your life in order, keep more organized, and provide self-care. I probably should also add that under that window of outsourcing, there's lots of things that we also outsource in the business itself. So we have a couple of VAs that help us with editing or social. I know lots of my friends have VAs that help them in their inbox. I do not. I like to correspond with my clients. I also like to manage my own schedule. That makes me really nervous. But we use Imagine. I'll put a link in the description if you want to try it. But we use Imagine for culling, for editing. That has helped tremendously. And just lots of tools to help with like workflow. We used Dubsado, our website. We use Show It. There's so many tools that feel like expenses of the business, but really they help the business run well. And it just keeps things going. It's necessary tools to run the business. But I did want to mention that because those tools help keep me organized and give me more time for my family. There's two more things that I want to touch on. This first one is going to be that you need to let go of guilt. And I know this is easier said than done because it's hard. And I understand that. Like, oh, trust me when I say that I am just as sad as I truly believe in my heart any other person on this earth when I leave my kids. I cry. It is not fun. I feel like I'm losing time with them that is already short. Like, I get that. But I cried the other day because, and I'll give credit where it's due, was to my friend Amanda Crane, who told me that, I have to remember that my children, my girls especially, are going to look at me and say, Mom, especially as they're older and they really understand, I'm so proud of you, because I'm going to show them, and you're showing them too, as a mother, that you can be strong, independent, worthy. You can be a contributor or sole provider even for your family, as well as a loving, kind, gentle, and amazing mom. And I believe that if we're all striving for that balance and really doing our absolute best to be there for them and then also be this resource for our family as an income provider or an income supplementer, depending on where you are and what your goals are for the business, that you can let go of the guilt because you know that you're doing your absolute best. And this last one I'm going to touch on is the idea of finding support. I would love to continue to be a resource for you through this podcast, through our YouTube channel, depending on where you're tuning in. And I also want to let you know that we do have a community called the Wedding Photography Society that is open. You are more than welcome to learn more. It is an incredible community, many of which are mothers. We talk about things like, what are you doing for childcare? And what do you do when your kid gets sick? Or gosh, like, how do you find time for editing during the weekdays or when your kids are out for summer camp? Like, these are things that all of us parents are dealing with. I'm obviously saying mom because I'm a mom, but there are lots of dads, single dads, maybe you're in a partnership, that are dealing with these same issues. And so having a support group can really make you feel less alone in an industry that is so specific. This is the root of why I started the Wedding Photography Society, because I realized that our job is very unique and it can sometimes feel like you're on an island and the entire world is working 9 to 5 and free on the weekends. And so if you're in that place, I really encourage you to check it out. Join us. We'd love to have you. And if it's not at the Wedding Photography Society, try to find local photographers in your community, like some way, somehow find that support and continue to listen in, because I would love to continue to provide information for you. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you so much. This is a topic that has become very near and dear to my heart, and I hope to share more as I learn more. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.